Airport Immigration Inspection Legal Guide. Good day, everybody. Today we're going to talk about how to prepare to come to the United States for a visit on a non-immigrant visa, let's assume an H-1B visa. The process involves 3 steps: anticipate, prepare, execute. Anticipate. You should always learn about your visa and understand that you could possibly go to secondary inspection. You may or may not be able to control going to secondary inspection, so you have to assume that that might happen, and if it happened, how to handle it in advance. In the anticipation area, you need to understand your visa, understand the visa type, understand the common questions that you'll be asked. On the issue of secondary inspection, you need to understand the triggers. What triggers a secondary inspection? It could be something that you cannot control. For example, you have a criminal background, you have a DUI, or you had an issue with a prior immigration incident, and you're going to go to secondary inspection. Then you have to anticipate that, and you have to prepare for it. So once you anticipate and define exactly what's my visa, am I going to go to secondary inspection, and if I go to secondary inspection, how to handle it mentally, then you are ready to prepare for the visit to the United States and to be ready for your inspection. Now, preparation. As we talked, vulnerabilities. What are the 10 common questions that I will be asked if I am to be at the airport today? For example, I printed 10 from online that are you can find these anywhere. What are the most common 10 questions I will be asked at the airport? Who is your employer? You have to know exactly the full name of the employer. You cannot hesitate. What is your job title? You must know that. Where will you be working? Address. You have to know the exact address, and you have to be very comfortable saying it and citing it from memory. Do you have a copy of your H-1B notice, I-797? You have to be able to bring it immediately and not take 10 or 15 minutes looking for it. Do you have a copy of your employment verification letter? You need to obtain one and be prepared to present it. What is your salary? What is your job description? Have you worked for any other employer in the United States? Have you ever violated your status? You have to be able to say yes or no. Where do you live in the U.S.? And hopefully where you will live in the United States will be close to where you will be working. In the front of preparation, you have to also decide what electronics you're going to be bringing with you. We all know what happened to electronics when you come to the United States. They could be accessed by CBP, and they could be downloaded, and they can search them, and if there's any inconsistencies in these electronic records, it can cause a problem for you. Many European countries now are advising their citizens not to bring any electronics with them. So you may decide not to bring your electronics, which is not a bad idea. Don't bring a resume, for example, with you, paper resume. A lot of resumes don't have 100% accurate information. Plan your trip in a relaxed way. Don't plan a very tight connection. Allow at least 4 hours for your connecting flight, just in case you go to secondary, you're not nervous and rushed, and that may reflect negatively on you. Now, you've prepared your questions, you identify your vulnerabilities, and if some of the vulnerabilities that you have are something that you cannot resolve before you travel, you might need to contact an attorney to discuss it and discuss with them how you can handle it. Sometime we may supply a letter to the client that describes that this criminal incident does not create inadmissibility grounds because, and here's the legal reasons. So you're ready with your letter to present to CBP if you're asked. Now, you fly to the United States, you're prepared, you learned your questions, you've learned that you may be going to secondary, you have to assume that, and now you're ready to execute. Execution is very important. You have to be precise. One of the things that you have to do is contact your employer and let them know when you're arriving. Make sure you have their phone number of your direct supervisor or your employer. If they're called, and check with them, make sure that they understand the time of arrival. So if the CBP officer calls to confirm employment or ask questions, they are ready to help. You may also email them an email before from an email account that you're not going to bring with you because everything is suspicious at CBP that says, here's my job description, here's my work location, here's what I'm going to be doing in case you don't have this information handy for your reference in case you were called by CBP. Now, always be respectful with the officer. You go through the primary inspection, and they're going to pull the screen and they're going to look at some information. Now, this information may trigger a secondary inspection, or your answer may trigger a secondary inspection. So what triggers secondary inspection? Background, visiting countries that are not friendly to the U.S., random sometime, and also the airport is camera happy. You're watched every second, and if you looked suspicious, you could be called for a secondary inspection as well. Very little you can do except do your thing and focus on yourself. And if you're called into a secondary inspection, be prepared. If not, you just move on, and that would be great news. Now, you're called to secondary inspection. What is your options? First of all, secondary inspection, all the information that they will collect about you with regards to approval or disapproval, not all, probably most, comes from inconsistent information you'll provide. CBP has access to your DS-160 form. CBP has access to comments made by the interviewing officer at the consulate. They have access to more information that we do not know what they are, because the screen is not something that we can access as lawyers. And these inconsistencies between the DS-160 form and your answer or some documents you provide is what build the case for denial. At secondary inspection, there are a couple of options. Number one, you could be approved and you will process and life goes on, and you could be rejected. Now, if you're rejected, there are multiple options. You could be denied admission, meaning that they send you back, or they can put you in administrative removal, which means you have a ban to come back to the United States for 5 years if they have a strong case for that. Now, you have to understand the situation you're in, and you have to assess it, and you have to be alert. And you have to always be respectful of the officer. You have to answer clearly. Now, by now, you've done your preparation. You reviewed your DS-160 form. You reviewed your job description. You know your duration of employment. You have information about your work location, your job description. Everything is all in your memory, and you're ready to answer precise answers. And as you answer your questions, the officer is going to try to build conflict between records they have, information you answer, or they ask the same question in more than one way to see if you're going to be giving the same answer again. If you find yourself that you are with an officer who does not intend to process you through, you could politely make the decision, officer, do I have the option to withdraw my admission? Because you don't want to be in a situation where they're building a case to give you administrative removal, which has a 5-year ban. Is it possible, if you find yourself in a situation that's really not going well, you have to be very respectful. Is it possible for me to withdraw my admission? Now, that means you're not going to get in the U.S., and then you're going to go back home, and then you're going to call your lawyer and see how you can fix it, which if you're denied admission only, it's manageable, and we can probably deal with it. If you will go through administrative removal, meaning that they removed you and they deported you, it carries a 5-year ban, and then you have to file for a waiver, which is a big problem. Typically, they do that if they think that you lied to them, they have a strong belief, or they have a strong evidence. Now, whatever you decide, if you are asked to sign a document, read it first. Do not sign anything that's not accurate. Always be respectful, and you have to tell the officer, officer, respectfully, that's not what I said. Officer, respectfully, that's not what I mean. This is not accurate. I cannot sign this, and ask them to correct it so you have the record. Because if you sign on something that they said you said, and you sign on it, you said it. I cannot change that later. You signed on it. Now, if you sign something, and if it's correct, if the information are correct that they're asking you to sign, request a copy of it. You're entitled to a copy. Request a copy. If they don't give you a copy, it's going to take 8 or 9 months to get a copy to be able to read it, to understand what you signed on. Therefore, it's really critical that you have the presence of mind to request it in a respectful way. Now, if you find yourself in a situation where the officer is angry, mad, not happy, they may have had a long day. Now the officer, remember, he is not your friend, but you can always try to build rapport with the officer. They are human beings. If they like you, they will help you. If they don't like you, they will not help you. So be likable and best of luck. So that's your guide to airport inspection. Hopefully that helps you. And if you have any questions, you can drop it in the notes and we'll do our best to respond. And we're going to turn our attention to questions asked. And remember, if you have questions during the week, you can drop it at immigrationquestions.us and we will do the best we can to answer those questions. I'm going to take questions right now, and if you guys give me 1 second, since I'm a single person. Brian is not with me for, he's on vacation this week and next week, and let's see what we can do with questions that we have. So let's take the first one here from Tarun. Dear sir, this is one follow-up question from last day. Okay, one of my friend's wife, H-4 visa holder, was charged with disorderly conduct in 2023. Now she needs to file an H-4 extension along with her husband. Okay. Does she need to inform anything to company lawyer? That's an excellent question that is being asked. A company lawyer often in the H-4 context really represent the wife or the spouse, I should say. Well, he says wife in his question. So if I'm filing an H-1B petition, and if I am also doing the H-4 for the spouse, now information shared during the H-1B filing is information typically shared between commonly. So if there's any derogatory information about the H-1B employee, the employer can ask about it. I cannot say I'm not going to be able to provide you this information. With regard to the H-4 spouse, that is a completely separate representation. So what you need to tell your company lawyer that I need you to file this H-4 for me, but I want to make sure that information collected in the H-4 petition is confidential to my wife and it cannot be shared with my employer. Can you do that before you sign it? 99.9% of the time, you're going to get an employer who is willing to, an attorney who will say yes, in which case you will be just fine. And you can share the information and you should be comfortable that the attorney will not share information with the company. Follow-up question here. They know that during the DS-160 port of entry, she needs to share the actual facts and documents. But is there anything that needs to be mentioned during the filing of the H-4 extension to company lawyer? So again, this is regarding a disorderly conduct on the H-4 for the spouse. With regards to that, I don't think on the H-4 petition there is questions about prior criminal conduct for the spouse. However, I have seen RFEs that bring that up, that raise that up. So, so we've seen RFEs where it comes back and, hey, you've had this conviction, you had this matter, please provide details. So the company, you have to assume that the company lawyer may have access to these details by virtue of the RFE that is received. But you don't have to say anything if they are not asking. And I don't think that conviction of disorderly conduct is going to be a bar to H-4 approval. So most of the time it's going to be just fine. All right. Abdul Rashid Bangura. Good day, sir. Good day, sir. There is any processing for work permit as asylum seeker if you're not under parole program as of now? Is there any ability to file for a work permit as an asylee if you're not under parole program right now? So as an asylee, I'm not an asylum lawyer. To be honest with you, I don't do asylum. I probably should say I don't know. But the general answer to the questions, is that after, I think, 180-day filing the asylum, if it's not approved, you get work authorization. You don't have to be in parole. But talk to your asylum attorney, and hopefully they can answer the question. Follow up here, I believe. Good day, sir. Is there any processing for me? Okay, I think we've answered that. And then Tarun says, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Have a nice day. Thank you. So I have here a question that came in with regard to coming in on a visitor visa. How should I prepare for my visitor visa at the airport? That's an excellent question that we have, that I've seen here, that regarding inspection. We talked about H-1B visa. We have not talked about coming in on a visitor visa and what question do they ask. So when you're coming in on a visitor visa, it is one of those most peculiar visas, because the visitor visa sometimes is given for 10 years, and then you're coming in on year number 5 or year number 6, and sometime they're going to ask you questions and how to prepare for it. So anticipation, preparation, execution. So in terms of preparation, in terms of anticipation, you need to understand your vulnerability on your B visa. Are you a single person that doesn't have any kids coming in? Do you have a job in your home country? Do you have ties to the home country? They reevaluate that. Now, the visa, maybe the B visa was issued 5 or 6 years ago. Maybe you were married back then, and maybe you had a job, and now you're single and don't have a job. So those things are very important. They will look into, do you have return transportation? You have to purchase your return transportation before you fly in. If you don't have a return transportation ticket that you can present at inspection, you're going to go to secondary probably. Do you have sufficient funds to travel? And what is your itinerary? That's really an important question. What are you planning when you come here? Why are you coming here? What are your plans? I'm going to go visit my cousins. They live in Vermont. They had a new baby, and they're having a party, and I want to be part of it. Oh, give me your cousin's name and phone number, because they're going to call the cousin and secondary, and they're going to say, I get somebody coming here at the airport. Is he related to you? Is that person related to you? What's the reason for him or her coming into the United States? So they confirm that. So you need to call them, let them know that I need you to be available to answer the phone, because if you didn't answer the phone, that's not good news. Be able to answer the phone if there's a secondary. They also ask for how much money you got, what's your itinerary, your return transportation ticket, your duration of stay in the U.S., and they will probably look at the DS-160 form. It could be old in this case, and they're going to see if there's any conflict. And if there's any conflict, it's a problem. Also, they look at prior admissions and any overstays. If you've overstayed, or if you try to extend your B visa, typically that's going to be difficult. If you've been coming in frequently, that's going to be also a red flag for a B visa visitor. All right. I got a question here coming in from Vishal. Hi, I am a legal permanent resident. I'm planning to travel to Hawaii. Is it safe to travel to Hawaii? Well, Hawaii is part of the United States of America, my friend, and it is most certainly safe to travel to Hawaii for any permanent resident who has no issues with the law whatsoever. So if you don't have any problems with the law, that should not be a problem whatsoever. So one of the questions I have here is, what is what is the reason people are referred to secondary inspection? And as I mentioned in my presentation, I went over a little bit quickly, but I can tell you what's normally the reasons are for secondary inspection. Typically, first of all, random selection. They will do random selection to secondary inspection. About 20 years ago, I had a tour, I think one of the international airports, and we went behind the scene. I don't think these tours are available even for lawyers anymore. Behind the scene at CBP, and we saw how they operate. One thing we were asked to do is not to look at the screen. So we were not allowed to see what they can see. But in terms of the operation is, number one, there's a bunch of people are watching you. There are cameras everywhere. They're looking at your demeanor. So the demeanor is very critical. How you behave, if you look nervous, if you look unusual, you're going to be called into secondary. In terms of the primary inspection, if they pull the screen and they see that you visited countries, or they look at your passport, they visit countries frequently that are of a concern, you're going to go to secondary. If, for example, they see a criminal record that's flagged, you're going to go to secondary. And in secondary, they're going to be delving and looking at these things. They are trained in questioning you and finding conflict, but they're not very trained in the law. So if the issue is complicated, you got to anticipate that complicated question and be able to answer it. And if it's too complicated, get a lawyer to write you a letter to explain it, so you don't have the problem. Because once you give it to them, you will be able to hopefully resolve the matter. I mean, a long time ago, when the visa revalidation was very new, we had a guy coming in on the visa revalidation flying into Detroit, and when they landed in Detroit, these officers knew nothing about visa revalidation. We had printed out the regulations, we have wrote them letters, we have wrote them, they looked at the letter as if it's written in a foreign language. They had absolutely no understanding what visa revalidation. They ended up sending my client back to Mexico, and then he crossed the border, land crossing next day, and he was able to come back on the visa revalidation, but not the first time in Detroit because they were not familiar with it. So understand the time and place and manner of your situation, anticipate the issue, and hopefully you'll be able to survive inspection. With that, I see no more questions. I am going to conclude today's session, and I will be seeing you guys